Visions of Mana or Mana. Visions of Mana.
Visions of Mana, indeed. Adam, any excitement for this at all?
It looks really cool, but I think you're gonna explain it to a way that will appeal to me a bit more. I think because I don't know much about the Mana series in general, I didn't really know what I was looking for in terms of a new installment of a Mana game.
And the trailer that you watched when you kind of did your research, did you watch the gameplay trailer or did you watch the new trailer where they were kind of jumping through the incantations of the Mana series?
I think this one is the gameplay. Is that the one we wanted?
That's fine. I was just curious if did you see the gameplay trailer where it's like the young kid and he's like on the old CRT TV,
I did not see that one.
like playing the Game Boy, and then he like grows up and stuff like that.
Here, I'll pull up the one I saw.
Think real quick. Honestly, let's pause it real quick because I think people, yeah, let's let people know what's going on here because that other trailer is kind of like that one really tugs at my heartstrings because it's gonna just describe my childhood to a T. So the Visions of Mana series, it's done by Square Enix, and if you don't know anything about it, the game originally came out. It's known in Japan as The Legend of the Sacred Sword, and it started in 1991 on the Game Boy. And it actually started as Final Fantasy Adventures, which was like a side story to the super popular Final Fantasy that was on the NES. So that's how Mana kind of got its start. But the series became really, really popular on the Game Boy. And then in 1993, Secret of Mana dropped on the Super Nintendo. And basically, what they did there is they dropped all of the Final Fantasy lore from the game and made it its own series. And that is where I jumped into it. And to this day, dude, this is still one of my favorite games of all time. Like growing up through my childhood, this was one of my favorite games of all time. I actually still have the cart. Look how crispy that bad boy is. Yeah, dude. So I'm super, super into the Mana series, and I really, really, really love this series. Um, so Secret of Mana dropped in 1993, and it was a huge hit. And then after that, it did get a few extra games. So there was Trials of Mana that was out on the Famicom in 1995, and then Legend of Mana, which was on the PS in 1999. And then there was this brief period in 2006 and 2007 where there was four titles that kind of dropped, where they tried to kind of bring the series back, and it never really caught on. So we're not going to talk about those. But going back to the Super Nintendo Secret of Mana, basically what happens in that game, and I think this is really important that you kind of know about the game, that this takes place in the fantasy world. And it basically what happens is think of it like Wakanda, where this world kind of contains this energy source, and they call it mana. And what happened was this ancient civilization exploited the mana and then built this thing called the Mana Fortress, which was like this giant flying warship. And then this kind of angered the world gods of the time, who sent giant beasts down to the civilization and like went to war with them to try to reclaim that mana power. And basically, what happens in that like ancient time is a hero uses the mana sword to destroy the fortress and return the world to peace. Now, when you open up the Secret of Mana in 1993, what basically happens is the game starts. You see that there's this empire that's kind of seeking these eight mana seeds, which is now holding all the power of the mana. And what they want to do is to restore those seeds and rebuild the mana fortress, which obviously would be very, very bad because they can take over the world again. And the game starts with three boys. In this game, you're actually nameless, so these characters don't have names, but you're kind of trespassing on this waterfall. And one falls into the waterfall and ends up finding the mana sword, and then removing the mana sword from the rock bed kind of awakens these monsters of the past that were once defeated and laid to rest. And they start attacking the village. And because they start attacking the village, this boy has been shunned from his village. So as he's leaving the village, he runs into this traveling knight who recognizes the blade as the mana sword and tells him that he needs to visit eight temples to recharge it and to like become the hero of the past. And it's just an absolutely amazing game. So in that game, the Empire does succeed in unsealing the mana seeds and resurrecting the mana fortress, and the story kind of unfolds from there. but you can see where like this story is kind of right up my alley, dude. It's like Legend of Zelda, but with like way gianter beasts and like I was so juiced on this game that I'm so excited for this game. I'm so excited for this game. We can take a look at the trailer now. Now that you guys know a little bit about the Secret of Mana.
So is this game going to be a continuation of the story?
So here's the thing. The game is not going to be a continuation. So you do not need to play never needed to play Secret of Mana in 1993, but I think if you did play the Secret of Mana series, there's going to be a lot of things in this game that you recognize. So it won't be a direct continuation, but it will all make sense within the timeline if you've played the original story.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
let's pull up the trailer. Here it is.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the trailer because I'm super excited for this one. And again, guys, if you're just listening, this looks so good. Doesn't it look so good?
Yeah, and that's what kind of like stuck out to me is just like the animation of the environment looks really good. The coloring looks really good.
Yeah.
The I don't know, it's got the cartoon like anime look to it, and I think it looks really good.
So they kind of kept it like a lot like Adam's saying, like it's super bright and super vibrant, and it has that like cartoony kind of feel to it. But they still kind of kept it in like the same style almost as like it almost like the Super Nintendo sprites. Like it still kind of feels like a retro game that's just been given like a facelift,
Right.
if that makes sense.
And honestly, the music in the background sounds really good and like fits well with the game style.
Yeah, and the settings are amazing, guys. So if you're just listening, like the settings are ridiculous. I mean, we're looking at the mana tree right now. It looks beautiful. I'll talk about that in a second. But there's like a swampy kind of golden hour spot. Like we saw him running through the snow. Like there's this beautiful like spring meadow kind of situation going on, and like it just looks really, really beautiful. And I think that they really kind of held true to the way that fans like myself who've played the Super Nintendo version and love the Super Nintendo version, this is exactly the way that I want them to make the game because it still just really holds true to that Super Nintendo vibe that I love.
So is this isn't just a Switch exclusive? Like you can play it on PlayStation. Well, obviously it just said PlayStation. So they'll backtrack that. I'm stupid because there's a PlayStation trailer, but it started out as a Nintendo game. Was it on like PlayStation and stuff too as well back in the day?
No, so it started out on Nintendo because again, it was a spin-off of Final Fantasy. So if you guys don't know about Final Fantasy series, the Final Fantasy series started on Nintendo on the NES. And that game was so wildly popular that they did this kind of spin-off that went onto the Game Boy, and that was this game. And this game did so well that, you know, like I said, when Secret of Mana came out, they basically dropped all the Final Fantasy lore and were like, dude, we're making this its own game. Like it doesn't have anything to do with Final Fantasy anymore, and that's where it really kind of took off. And they had the licensing with Nintendo for a while, but the fourth game, the last real game that I count in the series, did drop on PlayStation in 1999 because that's when Square Enix started to like, you know, when the Final Fantasy like you know, the classic 6, 7, 8, that's when all those started dropping on the PlayStation. That's kind of when they lost their Nintendo exclusiveness and went to the PlayStation.
And then okay, so what is this story? Is it gonna be like you said? You don't need to play the new ones, but what did you find on the new story of this one?
Yeah, okay. So basically the story on this one here, and went directly to the source here, and I wanted to make sure that I nailed this. So if you go and actually look at their website, they say that the game is a completely new story, but it is going to have kind of aspects of the original game, like I said. And their description of the game is that every 4 years, people from around the world are chosen to travel to the Mana Tree, which we saw that in the opening, right? The Mana Tree is very, very important in the Secret of Mana. So if you played the Secret of Mana, you're going to recognize that. Also seems to be very, very important in this game. And basically, what they need to do is rejuvenate the Mana Flower. And there's a soul guardian that is chosen to ensure the safe pilgrimage of all of these people. And the main character that you're playing as is Vale, is the guardian. So basically, what's going to be happening is that all of these people are pilgrimaging. Is that even a word? Pilgrimaging?
Sure, we'll make it.
Pil- Making the pilgrimage.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's the way you say it. So all of these people are going to be making to the pilgrimage to the Mana Tree to rejuvenate the Mana Flower. And my expectation here is that you're going to have to kind of travel ahead of them and clear the path of all of these monsters and evil things that are kind of set out in the path, keeping them from the mana tree.
Is it almost like a I don't know how to describe it. Is it almost like a like a Hunger Games situation? Like the first that gets there is like the one that kind of takes over?
No, no, it's a much more peaceful kind of thing, right? Because it's kind of everybody all working together, right? So this mana flower, rejuvenating the mana flower and like holding the the mana tree sacred and stuff like that. That's kind of what's keeping civilization at peace, right? So what you don't you want to rejuvenate this mana flower to keep everything kind of flowing in the natural course of things. And think of it this way: if the mana tree dies and the mana flower dies,
Bad things happen.
everything hits the fan. Like
Okay.
everything hits the fan, and the bad people win. So you basically we're all kind of working together to just kind of keep the peace. So yeah, it's not like a Hunger Games situation.
Okay, I'm caught up now. I was a little confused. I was like, oh, there's four people that are making the pilgrimage
Yes,
to.
it's a far less bloodthirsty
Okay.
story.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. Okay,
But
that's pretty cool.
don't get discouraged, guys. I mean, there's obviously going to be some crazy stuff in your way. So I mean, if you're looking for a game that you want some like kick-ass combat, like there's definitely going to be some stuff in your way that you need to fight, and it's going to be big and beastly. And I am super excited for it.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question. What do you want to see with like the gameplay mechanics and the combat mechanics to make sure one that it is like it holds up today versus like actually like staying true to what they are. You know what I mean? Like what are you expecting in this game?
There's a lot of things to talk about with the combat system, and the first thing is going to be that you have three playable characters. Number one is going to be Vale, like we talked about, who is the Guardian, and then you also have Karina and Morley, who at this point I believe are Vale's childhood friends and have been chosen to be one of the people that needs to go rejuvenate the mana flower. And during this gameplay, you're going to be able to seamlessly switch between these people in combat, which I thought was really, really cool because, again, going back to the Super Nintendo, this was kind of the first game that really kind of did this. Like if you were to look at this Super Nintendo Secret of Mana, right, you would probably think that it's a turn-based RPG, but it's not. It's really more of a hack and slash where you can kind of switch seamlessly between these characters. And back in the Super Nintendo days, you like that was kind of few and far between. That was a really new idea. So they carried that over, which I think is, really, really interesting and just something that I'm super excited that they brought over. And then in the game, you're going to have 8 elemental spirits, which will give you their powers. So you're looking at wind, earth, fire, stuff like that. And basically, you're going to be able to attach these kind of um, spirit element specialities to your character and give them a very different type of move set. And then in the combat system, it's kind of the same thing as like the original series, but just on steroids. So the original series, you had this like wheel that you could open up that would kind of like open up special abilities and stuff like that. They've brought that all back, which I'm super excited about because at its heart, this is a hack and slash. This is really just a hack and slash kind of brawler where you can switch between people, but it always had that element of like casting and using spells and using special attacks and stuff like that. And they brought all that back and they did it like absolutely crazy because based on the elements you can have 3 different characters that all represent 8 different move sets and skill sets with 8 8 different like 8 different like spells, and the combinations are gonna that you can play this game are kind of like endless.
That's really cool.
I think it's super, super, super underrated. I think the way that they kind of did it and threw the nod back to the original series is top notch.
And this is a single player game only. So even though there's 4 characters that you can kind of seamlessly switch between, it's you're playing by yourself, right?
This is a single player experience here. You're gonna be playing by yourself. So if you're a sad, lonely gamer like me, this is right up your alley. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really, really interesting. I mean, it's a linear game, which I love, but it's linear like like the Souls likes. It's a very large open world that is really focused on exploration. So you're never gonna get lost wondering where to go, but you're still gonna have the ability to explore, obviously. We talked about the classes, and the cool thing with the large open spaces is they do have mounts, so they're going to give you things to ride, so you can get like beasts and stuff like that to like ride around the areas like super fast. And Yeah, and just being able to switch between everything and just looking at the combat system. The combat system looks really, really clean. And one of my favorite things about the combat system that we've seen in the trailer, the AI looks responsive. They look like they're actually helping. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they're kind of just in the way and waiting for you to switch to them.
That's always the worst, especially like Suicide Squad did this kind of bad. Even though it's a co-op game, so they want you to play as a co-op, but like when you don't, the AI just gets in the way, or they're not really doing anything. They're kind of annoying. A game that does really well with the AI, like companions, was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Great. They did.
That game was really well done with the AI, and I can definitely see that because there's other games that it's like, why are you in the game? Like Call of Duty used to be like that. It's like you're like taking one like enemies one by one by like just one bullet, and then your AI soldiers are just standing there, like just not doing anything. It's like, man, I'm a one man army. Like, just go home, everybody. But no, it's good that the AI looks responsive and actually going to do something for you as you play the game. I guess another question I had is, shoot, what was I going to say? I can't remember. I don't remember. I think it was something to do with the abilities. Like, did you see on what some of those abilities are? You say it's elemental. What are those elemental? Like fire, things like that? The typical.
It's typical fire, wind, water, all that stuff. So, like, outside of those, I'm not really sure what they're gonna. I mean, I'm sure they'll probably throw in something crazy like spirit. I mean, this could be a Captain Planet situation where heart. You know, I don't know.
Like love.
Love, yeah.
Kill him with the power of love.
The power of love. Yeah,
But-
I think it's gonna be super good, man. I'm super excited for it. And you know, like it talked about with that other trailer. If you guys haven't checked out that other trailer, there's this trailer that dropped where it was kind of this kid. It starts off like way back in the day, and the kid's playing on the Game Boy. And then it kind of fast forwards a little bit, and then the kid is like sitting in his room on this old school. Yeah, this one. So
Yeah,
it's
yep,
like
pulling up the
yeah,
trailer.
pulling up. Yeah. So if you guys are just listening, this trailer, like when I saw this trailer just really kind of hit home for me, right? Because this was my experience, man. This was me as a kid. I'm in the game shop right now, and I just pick up a Game Boy game, and it's like
What is this?
yeah, it ends up being this, you know, Final Fantasy spin-off that's really the Secret of Mana, and then you get it and you're playing it, and you know, then it fast forwards to the Secret of Mana, and he's like sitting in his room with the CRTV and everything, and he's, you know, he finally gets the Mana Sword out, and like he finally beats the game, and it's that triumph moment where he's just kind of like, you know, leans back on the chair and he's like, I did it, you know what I mean? And like, that was my childhood, dude. Like this was my childhood, and it's a crazy long trailer, so
Yeah.
we don't have to watch the whole thing, but just
But
like, this
it's
was
just-
it, man.
It's cool, like with these kind of trailers, and like it's cool to see like this experience that everybody felt with this type of game. It was like so well known. They can make a trailer like this that everybody is like, like
Yeah.
that nostalgia feeling. Like I was just like this kid. So that's really
Yeah.
cool and really unique.
And the
and-
trailer, the best part of the trailer is the trailer ends and you see this guy that's like, he's got to be in his early 30s, right? And he walks out of this building. And you can tell he probably just left work or something, because
Yep.
he's in a suit and a tie, and then he looks up at the marquee and he sees that this game is coming out and just stands there, and it's like you can tell that all of these memories that he had as a kid are just kind of like, yeah, this part right here, like
Yep.
all of these memories that he had as a kid are just kind of like coming back to him, and he's like, you know, he's just like transported back into like his childhood right there. Just
Yeah.
looking at that, he's just like transported back, and you're just like, oh man, like that hits
Yeah.
right here for me, dude. It hits right there.
That's so cool. That's exactly how I feel when I play or anything I see Jet Set Radio. Every time I see something Jet Set Radio, I just remember like beating the final boss, and like, so when I saw the Sega announcement of like all those games, I'm like, Jet Set Radio, I gotta go back and experience it again. So, but that's really
Yeah.
cool, and like you said, the game looks really cool. It's coming out this summer. I don't think there's an official date. Did you see an official date?
No official date, but
Yeah.
it is planned for summer 2024 on all platforms. So, you know, everybody's going to get to experience this. We're going to get it sometime this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, no delays. But it looks pretty far in development. I don't really
Yeah, I
expect
can
any
imagine.
delays. And
No.
yeah, give it a chance. Give it a chance, guys. It's a great game. If you played Secret of Mana, you probably already know about this, and you're
Mhm.
already just like super juiced like me. And if you haven't, give this one a shot, because I think it's a game that if you don't really know what it is, it's just gonna kind of fly under the radar. But it's definitely worth checking out, I think.
I agree. Thumbs up for me. It's one I'll
Thumbs
actually
up.
check out. Even though I'm not a huge fan of like Legends of Zelda. That was like one of the first kind of vibes I got from it. But the more I watched, it's like, okay, this looks fun, fast, and like it doesn't seem like with Zelda, there's like a lot of puzzles in it, right? This one doesn't seem like a slow down, figure out puzzle kind of stuff.
You're gonna love this, Adam. Secret of Mana is Legend of Zelda without like the twists and turns of the dungeon.
Okay, I gotcha.
When you go to a dungeon, you're just killing stuff. You're not like finding the trapdoor, or like you just kill stuff until you get to the middle of the dungeon.
I like it. Thumbs up for me.
Thumbs up. I think it's gonna be a great game.
Yeah.
Check it out. Drops summer 2024 on all platforms.